It's after 7 o'clock, and we'll call the July 24th meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, first order of business is the minutes. Did you get to look at them?
I did.
Okay, minutes, approve the minutes as read.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Partial COC on 2420700, 58 Buckland Road.
This order was issued in 1994, and it governed 27-lot subdivision. Not all the lots were in jurisdiction. This particular lot, Lot 5, was not in jurisdiction, but it was discovered on the title. The property is a pending sale, so they're trying to clean up the title. There was a small drainage feature that looked like it drained the rear yard, but it didn't have, it just seemed that there was a low spot there that they wanted to relieve if those lots, got flooded, but it's out of jurisdiction, so, but.
Question, Joe?
No questions.
No questions.
Doug? Motion.
Move that we issue a partial certificate of compliance for 58 Buckland, Lot 5.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1428 Turnpike Street, requested continued till August 14th.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Modification request on 242-1720, 33 Regency Place.
Aye.
Maureen Harold from North Horizon Services. Basically, this is the same plan, just larger. If you want to take a look at that one.
Thank you.
Easier to see. The commission may recall this property got issued an enforcement order for constructing a basketball court on the property within the Huntington Plaza Zone without amending the existing order and conditions. Commission instructed an after-the-fact modification, which I applied for, plus the additional $600 bylaw fee, as well as the survey plan showing the sports court on the property.
Joe, any questions?
No, I think we asked all the questions when it was last before us, and this just formalizes the process, so I'm all set.
I have no questions.
The only question I have is, when we showed pictures of the sport court the last time, it was all gravelly and stuff, they're gonna saw the grass?
Yes.
Okay, I'm all set.
No question.
Doug? Motion?
It's ready to close, right, Amy?
Yes.
I move that we close and issue in 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Next one is NACC Small Project 237-657 4th Street.
This project involves the demolition of an existing 4x8 deck at the rear of the house, replacing it with a 14x16 deck. The new deck will have steel screw piles. Work also includes the construction of a new patio and connected walkway. Both of these structures will be under 300 square feet. All work is in the buffer zone, but well outside the 50-foot no-build. The only outstanding issue is that the narrative speaks to excavation for the patio, and under small project permits, excavation is prohibited, and it would require an RDA, so I wanted to make sure that got discussed this evening. So I don't know if there's a way to do the patio without, mechanical excavation, if it could be.
Well, there is, but that takes a lot of time doing that without mechanical excavation.
Okay, so I don't know what your timeline is for the patio. You could come back.
Right now, our focus was on getting the deck done. I mean, the patio's out of question for this year. We were just hoping to at least get clearance for getting the deck done. And we felt that with the patio and potential future plans within the next year or two, maybe, we thought we'd try to kill two birds with one stone. But our main focus is to be able to get the contractor moving on the deck. So that's what we wanted to really focus on.
Joe?
Yeah, I understand the efficiency of trying to get the permit once. I clearly do. What we have is a provision in that small project bylaw that we created that does prohibit it. And we had actually debated it several years ago when we, almost 7 or 8 years ago, when we created the small project bylaw to allow some level of excavation, but it was hard to control, and every site's topography and site conditions just differs somewhat, that you couldn't get it into an envelope that made sense. So as much as we'd like to work with you, I mean, if you're withdrawing the patio request, the deck is 100% approvable, no problem. And we'll just deal with the patio question at a future date.
That's what it takes for now.
Yeah, sorry. All set.
So you're willing to forego the excavation at this time and just get the deck done? Is that,
Yep.
procedurally, would that constitute amending the small project application right here, or just issuing a dual finding? I'm just trying to understand how we...
I think we could do a dual finding, and I'll make a
A dual finding, and then
notation.
you can note it?
Yep.
All right, we're not trying, I'm trying not to make you come back.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate it.
I'm good for now, Mr.
I agree with what you're doing. I feel bad that you can't put the patio there. The patio's fairly small though, isn't it?
It's about 224 square feet, but there's a walkway through that connects to an existing pad that's on the back of the garage. So that adds probably about another 50 square feet, maybe.
Right.
It's all under 300 square feet, though.
Well, I'm looking at the construction standing. Once you put the deck up and you have on the other side, what's that, stairs on the other side?
It's an existing bulkhead for the house to go
You're
down
gonna
to
get
the
rid of that
crawl.
bulkhead?
What's that?
You're getting rid of that bulkhead?
No, it's staying there.
So you have two bulkheads? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
no.
Or are we looking at it backwards?
One to the back left corner, and what's to the back right corner? Something,
There's something there.
a stairway or an upper, what is that?
That's the existing deck?
Right where it says proposed patio, there's an arrow. That's first box.
Yeah,
What is that?
that's a sidewalk.
That's the
Okay.
side.
That would connect to the
Yeah.
patio.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the question, because when he goes to dig, when they go to dig, I'm
Yeah.
sure you're gonna use a Bobcat, but, I'm just trying to figure out how you're gonna get at it.
What's that?
So you're gonna tear out that walk when you do the deck?
Well, no. Some of that, there's a little part right behind the garage that does exist, but not all of that exists. So we'd have to connect the two. That's what we would be constructing.
All right, well, I'm just trying to make it easy for you when you apply for an RDA to do the deck.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out what you do in that corner, because on a construction standpoint, there's not gonna be any way to get at it without wrecking that, whatever it is.
No, that's all ground level there. There's nothing in the way on the right-hand side of the house. There's
There's not-
nothing there.
there's
right.
nothing there.
There's just a sort of a small, it's like a cobblestone sidewalk there that's right now. Just
Your intention, when the day comes, is to build a patio and put this little L-shaped walk to what's probably a back door at the back of the house.
Yeah.
All right, well, just make sure when you file for RDA, you have all that explanation there.
Okay.
Because you're doing the RDA for the deck, but you're doing excavation work to get to the deck, so that
Yeah.
can be
I mean,
just included.
for just constructing the deck, we don't need to do any of that right now, so,
No,
okay.
no, the patio and the little walkway, whatever that is, you can address that at a later date.
Okay.
All right.
I see, but the arrows are just a little busy.
I know.
I see more clearly what says deck is actually pointing to that smaller element, that's existing to be destroyed.
That's the existing deck,
The
yes.
bigger box around that is the new deck proposed.
Correct.
That area that's where the word deck is simply where the future patio wants to be.
Correct.
Got it.
I'm used to dealing with more detailed prints at where I work. This was, I mean, because we're writing over the top of what exists, so it was kind of hard to get it all in there and make it clear.
All right, so that, the proposed deck is that whole, the 2 squares.
It's just the one square.
Just the one square,
Well,
just the one
Go
square,
up
right
against
here,
the bulkhead.
right here.
Above.
That's the proposed deck.
What's in the middle?
That's the patio, that's the walkway.
okay, all right,
They butt up to each other.
okay.
Yeah, they made up.
All right, Deb?
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Joseph.
Very well.
No
This is the
questions?
most time we've ever spent on something
Yes.
withdrawn from the project application. We should probably move along.
John?
I'm gonna stay.
How high above the ground is this deck?
It's going to be about 32 inches, 30 to 32 inches.
A couple of steps down from it?
Yeah, I think it'll amount to 3 steps that would,
Down-
they're
Down
going
to, on the deck, on the patio side?
yeah, yeah. And right now, we just build down to where the patio would normally be. And since we're not doing that right now, it's just going to go down into the lawn.
Okay, no other questions?
All right, motion?
We have to do two things here. I think we need to I move that we make a determination that this patio as proposed is less than 300 feet, but does require excavation, therefore is not a small project. And at the same time, I move that the proposed deck is a type A small project.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous.
One abstention.
One abstention.
So the second order of business would be to
To approve the work.
approve the small project for the deck under letter A.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. You're all set.
So for the purposes of your application, the patio is withdrawn at this time? Thank you.
Agenda here. Next one is small project, 238, 15
Acacia.
Pasha Drive. Thank you, Mr. Nancy.
It's a flower. It's a flower.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm glad you know.
This application is for the construction of an 8x8 shed at the side yard of the house at 15 Hepatica. The shed will be outside the 50-foot no-build zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Based on my field measurements, the rear of the shed will be 53 feet from a remnant wetland flag that I was able to locate. It's going to be in grass area, so it doesn't require removal of vegetation or anything like that. So I recommend approval.
Questions, Joe?
So there is an updated plan, but field measurements show that it's 53 feet.
53.
Yes.
That's the difference, because the plan that we have says 52.
So,
So that's about as close as a small project gets.
yes. But I had the benefit of a wetland flag out there, so
Okay, so you
I
do.
field verified it.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And in the terrain, we're not seeing any
Flat.
topography, it's flat, so it's
Flat.
something they can control easily.
Absolutely.
And the purpose of the shed is typical garden variety, so to
Garden
speak.
variety. That's right. That's right. Yep.
I'm all set.
Al?
No questions, sir?
Deb?
No questions.
Sean?
No questions?
Motion?
I move that we grant the small project request for NACC 238 under Section C of our small project application.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And do you, any conditions necessary for this? post-construction inspection, check it out afterwards?
Yeah.
And I move it that it's as proposed with post-construction inspection.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
That should probably go for 657 Forest as well.
Next one is NOI, it's 242-1759, 338 Blue Ridge.
Good evening, Maureen Harold from North Environmental Services. Here with me tonight is Michelle Lansky, she is the homeowner. I was in front of the commission a month ago introducing this project. We had filed a notice of intent for the installation of a pool and a number of other features on the property. The commission had asked for a number of revisions, and I can go through them real quickly. Commission requested a stockpile area. We are proposing a stockpile area adjacent to the driveway. Commission requested some infiltration for the pool patio area. We are proposing an infiltration trench along the backside of the pool. There was discussion or concern about the grading that was originally proposed behind the pool. We are now incorporating a retaining wall, therefore minimizing the grading. A note has been added to the plan because the existing driveway is proposing to be repaved. It's going to be in the exact same location, but we are repaving the driveway. During a site visit with Amy, we moved wetland flag 5A up gradient 6 feet. That is now reflected on the plan. So we connect 4A to the new wetland flag 5A. We also eliminated wetland flag 6A, so we now connect the new 5A to 7A. As a result of the wetland flag changes, the buffer zone offsets have also been adjusted. So the 25-foot no disturb, 50-foot no structure, and 100-foot buffer zones are adjusted. We added no disturbance markers along the 25-foot no disturbance zones, as you can see on the plan. In addition, the original proposal encroached within the 200-foot riverfront area. That has now been eliminated. And I can open it up to the commission for any questions or concerns.
Joe?
Pretty good summary of where my memory takes us on the last hearing, so I think I don't have any questions.
Al?
I have no questions.
I have one. What was the reason behind the 18 by 30 driveway extension? Is that-
That was originally to be able to turn around and to have some extra parking when you have.
And for some extra
Yeah,
parking?
I know.
Okay, because I mean, you probably save yourself a ton of money if you shrunk it down 8 feet, and it would pull it away from the, because you're right on the line. If you pulled it 8 feet, moved everything up, you'd save yourself a lot of backfilling, and you'd still have plenty of room for turnaround. But if you're gonna park there, that's if you park a long ways, you have plenty of room.
Yeah, my parents will be living with me as kind of so we can get out without them blocking in the driveway. They're gonna be moving in. That was
Okay.
kind of the reasoning for adding and being able to turn and get out without us
That was
all-
my
Yeah.
only question. I'm trying to save you money.
I know.
I'm just, because
I would like to save money.
Because 18 feet's a pretty
Yeah.
pretty wide turnaround.
I guess the takeaway on that, though, was the great caution of being up right at the no disturb, so, try to be very cognizant
Yeah.
of that and not encroach in it, because it'd just be,
Oh, yeah.
it'd be more money later.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so don't do that.
No.
Yep.
Thank you for the excellent summation. It was very clear, and it really added to the presentation. Thank you.
Sean?
There's a proposed fence going around the pool that's shown on here, right?
Yes.
And then below that, I see numbers 25, 40, 40 as far as feet. What's that referring to? It's in,
Can I take a look at the plan?
Sure. So where it goes 40, 40, 40,
Oh,
36?
so the markers will be placed every
Oh, that's the
40
distance
feet.
between the markers?
Yes,
Gotcha.
so we try to place them
Gotcha.
about every 40 feet.
Okay. So you've got no waivers necessary for this project?
That's correct.
And what's the distance between where the fences goes up and the 25 feet? Looks like a pretty short distance.
Between the fence, so you want the closest distance from the fence to the wetland? Is that right?
No, just from where I see, sure, I guess from the wetland, or at least to the 25 feet. How far away from the 25 foot is the fence at its closest point?
Maybe 11 feet,
Yeah.
11, the closest 10 feet?
And is it pretty flat over there on it looks pretty level.
For the most part, it's level in that location, yes.
So what do you anticipate being done with that 11 feet of space that kind of grows a little as it goes to the driveway? On the other side of a fence, is it going to be mowed? Is it going to be left just to grow?
Oh, no, other side of the fence, just,
Let it grow?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you have to kind of climb over there. and
Sure.
Try to get it back there would be,
Yep.
impossible.
I never want
We're
to get...
hoping that stuff will grow back, grow
Yep.
in and, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just surprised you wouldn't bring the fence a little closer to it. Not that I want to get anything closer to the wetland.
Oh,
But okay, yeah, if it's going to be just left to be vegetated, I don't have any other questions.
Done? No question. All right, motion. I'm sorry.
I forget if we anticipate any tree limbing at the rear of the property for the pool?
We did file for some
Tree removal, so that was part of the application as well. Okay, is that necessary anymore with the retaining wall? Well, we are proposing grading beyond the retaining wall, and yes. I mean, we'd like to have the option to remove some of those trees because it's fairly wooded.
let them grow,
And-
other ones back there.
Right, and then the pool will have some sunlight to it in the summertime.
Are those within any of the 25?
No, in fact, it's 30 feet away at the closest point. So it would just be up to the erosion control line, and that's shown in orange on the plan. So we're about 30 feet away at the closest point.
So you have any questions on that?
Oh, I have no questions at all. I think it's a
About,
well
talking
thought out.
about the trees.
No questions with the tree.
Okay.
No. I'm even thinking that, one, they're allowed to do it within, the no disturb anyway, outside of the no disturb, and in the fact that, I just want to be clear, the question was limbing. Question was limbing of the trees, not
Yeah,
taking,
she
not
said-
removal.
She said remove.
So the removal, we understand, but your question was limbing, so any upper branches beyond that gonna come out?
No, just everything within the erosion controls.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, I understood that, but I just wasn't clear on that. Okay,
Sure.
thank you. So I have no questions.
Al?
Oh, good.
Okay, motion?
Move that we close initial decision within 21 days, 242-1759, 338 Blue Ridge Road.
All those in favor? Aye. Say aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. You're all
Thank
set.
you.
Thank you.
Next one is 242-1745, 350 Winthrop Ave.
Good evening. My name is Peter Ellison. I'm the civil engineer for the project. I think I'll just run through some of the updates from the last time I was in front of you, which I believe was in April. And I'll give a brief summary. So what the applicant's proposing is an 84-foot box culvert. It's to replace a failing culvert that is currently out there. The culvert today is about 270 feet long. It's 48 inches corrugated metal pipe. It has a history of failure, and if you do make a site visit out there, you can observe at the southern end of the culvert, the mouth of the culvert is rotten and in poor condition, needs to be replaced. So what they're proposing is to shorten that culvert. The new culvert would be reinforced concrete, 84 feet long, and then we would create what we're calling an open channel to direct that water down into the Shawshene River. Some of the updates from the last meeting is actually the plan that's on the board here. You had asked to provide kind of an aerial image to give you a better grasp on where this is on the site. So at the southern end, you have a perennial stream with a bank and BVW, and then at the northern end, the Shawshene River with a bank and BVW associated with that as well. We've also added some stormwater management. As you know, the snow storage area is in this grass area right off the edge of the drive aisle along the parking lot. So what you had asked was to get some stormwater management BMPs installed to treat the stormwater or the snow melt, I should say, before it gets to the Shawshene River. So what we've proposed are 2 grass channels. The high end of this channel here would be up here by the driveway. It would flow slowly downhill that way, and then the second channel would start here and flow this direction, and then ultimately into a bioretention area that would treat the stormwater before it discharges to the grass channel. Guess that's a pretty basic summary of what has been updated, so I'd like to open it up to the commission or to Amy if you have any questions.
Thank you. Joe?
I think it's, the concerns that I raised was exactly that, and I think what we need to focus on is the adequacy of the BMP, given the amount of snow. It's dead flat out there, as we all know. So the thought would be they continue to stockpile there. It somewhat affects their Christmas tree sales, but that's their issue, I suppose. They're doing it with their eyes wide open. And again, I don't think they sell trees. They volunteer their land for others to sell trees. So the thought would be to stockpile the snow that melts off, leaves sediments and trash and whatnot, shopping carts there. It washes out into these BMPs to get most of the suspended solids out, and then into a bioretention to get the end of them out, and then ultimately discharge towards the open swale, which is a lot better than what's there now for Don Shore. So the question becomes, I think, more of operation and maintenance is that becomes an ongoing necessity to be cleaned out annually and re-landscaped and revitalized each and every spring, which is okay. It's better than what we have out there. But I think the intent is exactly what I was looking for, and we should focus on the O&M plan.
I'm satisfied with the plan. I have no questions.
I also don't have an issue with the plan, but I would think some type of barrier where that second swale bottom is, because, pushing snow, it's gonna just keep pushing. I mean, if they could put like some rocks, just so they would stop the pushing of the snow, that would help to segregate that area that you want to keep wet. So as it melts, it goes into the swales and drains off. I think we should put some type of barrier around the, like an L
shape on either end of it.
Yeah, so this way, it'll help you in the long run because you don't have to do as much maintenance, and it'll keep the equipment from, because they're just gonna keep pushing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I do this for a living, so I know.
Yeah. So what are you thinking, like some large boulder type
Boulders, yeah,
stones?
some big
Okay.
boulders, so that the operators can see that's the end, and then Amy can put some placards, no snow storage.
They'll have to be elevated, or
On posts.
they'll be invisible.
On posts with the, as long as, if they go to it and stop, the snow will be its own barrier. at some point,
Yeah.
as long as they don't get carried away. That's why I'm for the boulders and some type of placarding along that swale. Yep.
I'll stop.
Sean? Doug?
The only concern that I would have regarding this is that whether or not this area is big enough to store the snow and sell Christmas trees at the same time. And it would seem to me that the Demoulas needs to be aware that there may be a conflict, depending on whether we get snow or not, and that they may have to find another place to sell the trees from in order to allow the stockpiling of snow there. If we get an awful lot of snow, that area is, it seems to me the snow is going to be moved further toward where they're selling the trees based on your plan here than was there, that happened last year, that I observed at the site. So I think the owner needs to be aware that they may have to sacrifice that site for selling trees, depending on weather conditions.
Find another location.
And the owner, and that whoever's got the trees there may have to pick up and move, either that or find another location to pile the snow.
Yeah.
You know,
This is a tough,
I don't know if they can
Site.
temporarily pile the snow in the middle of the parking area or not.
Yeah.
Part of the parking, so.
The reality is,
This is early in the season when they're selling the trees.
yeah, it's November to mid-December, late,
We're not into the blizzard
You
situation.
may not have the snow, you may not have a problem,
or you
but
might.
you could,
Right, well,
you could.
But I think their eyes are open wide. They made the application. This has been discussed since April, back and forth, at least through emails and whatnot. They've made a couple of iterations in thinking about this. I would hope their client is aware of it. They know their real estate better than, almost as good as they know groceries. And they know what's out in that area. And if it gets to the point that they displace one or the other, it's their call, something they have to do. We're allowing snow stockpile there.
Go any further than a certain point, if that's where your boulders are,
Right.
that they can't move the snow the other side of the boulders.
They gotta go up.
Well, they do pile it high. I mean, that's, but other than that, I've got no questions.
So,
So what I envision is an OM plan that clearly states what they're going to do on an annual basis as far as revitalizing the area each spring. And I think prior to the snow season, I think a requirement that the owner notify the Conservation Commission of who their snow operator is for that season, and that a pre-season meeting take place to show them those limits and understand, because if we issue a violation of Demoulas, I know for a fact the Demoulas folks will probably not pay their contractor if he violated it on his own.
I know the contractor, so
Me too. He won't do it,
he won't.
as long as we show him.
Now, are we gonna condition those boulders and this, can we condition those?
There's no reason why we can't handle everything in the conditions.
Yep.
It sounds like the applicant is agreeable, and I'm sure that there wouldn't be any problem with conditioning what we discussed.
Any more
One
questions?
thing I'll add, there is two new provisions in the O&M plan for the site for the grass channel and the bioretention. I don't know if, are you looking for more detail? I kind of wrote these up just directly from the Mass Stormwater Handbook for inspection and maintenance.
I don't think I didn't get the O&M plan.
Okay.
So what
Yeah,
we
it
will
was a
do is
thi-
we
it
will
was a
review-
thick pack.
We will review the O&M plan, reference it within the order, and anything we think needs to be enhanced or fortified, we'll just condition it.
Okay, great.
That's the cleanest way.
One of those conditions might be that it get revised and submitted again, just for the record.
Yeah,
Keep
sure.
it cleaner.
Yep, no problem.
Need a motion.
So wait, so our meeting schedule is 3 weeks from now, and we have 21 days to issue an order, and I haven't prepared a draft decision for
So
your
we're better off
consideration.
continuing this to the
If-
next meeting, and then we can close the
I
issue at the
feel
same.
better because I feel like there's some, I don't want to miss anything.
No, and we appreciate that information,
It's
so
gonna-
you
it's about to
understand.
be an
I
administrative
understand.
continuance, you don't need to be back.
Okay.
So they made a lie about me.
Sorry.
I move that we continue
Motion to continue.
hearing for next meeting.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. Thank you. Good job.
All right, thank you.
All right, the next one is, where am I here?
Next one is 4 High
Is
Street.
Avalon Bay.
Yeah.
All right.
4 High
Nope.
Street.
Yes, we have one reclusion. Jamie? Okay. Before we start this presentation, you did hear me before stating that this is not approved, it's just an opening of the applicant to see what they have to say. So if you want to stay, you're more than welcome. And if you have any questions, just relegate them to wetlands issues and not the buildings or the parking or the roadway, or that has nothing to do with us. Okay?
Now, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear, we have a recusal because of an abutter
An abutter.
situation.
Yes.
But he also has rights as an abutter, so he can recuse from participating in the hearing. If he so chooses, he can participate as an abutter.
Okay.
Just want to, that's clear.
Okay. Avalon, go for it, yes.
All right. Thank you, members of the commission. I'm David Gillespie from Avalon Bay Communities, here to just make a brief introduction before I turn it over to our technical experts from Time Bond, who are going to talk about stormwater and wetlands and the things that are applicable as it relates to the commission. We're very excited to be here in North Andover. As I'm sure you've heard, and as shown in our application, we are proposing a 250-unit project. This is being concurrently reviewed by the planning board. And I think what our goal is as we go through these first hearings with the planning board and with the commission is to understand the constraints. The site is already highly constrained by a number of easements and zoning restrictions. And what we're trying to do is get feedback from all of the applicable boards and commissions, town staff and such, and work on addressing those comments in a comprehensive way. So that's really the purpose of us being here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Hool and Jean Christie, who are going to go through the technical aspects, but I'll be here if there's any questions about the other parts of the proposal. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to let the applicants know that we just received this. So a lot of us, I have read it, and I think Joe has. Sure. But some of the commissioners perused it. It took me an hour just to get through kind of, I really have to read it again. So I'm just letting you know, technical, she can give it, but it's going to, a lot of it is going to be second guessing because we don't really know what's there.
Sure. From our perspective, we just want to walk through the application, the NOI that was submitted to the commission, talk about some of the constraints, talk about the strategies that the team is looking to use to mitigate stormwater and wetlands impacts. And obviously, it's going to be a well-reviewed project in the sense that we've already had a stormwater peer review. We're going to have other reviews. We have the letter from Amy, which we're going to respond to as well. So this is just a kickoff so that everyone has an opportunity to walk through the application that we've submitted and ask questions as we go on through further review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great spots. Thank you, Dave. For the record, I'm Amanda Hool, Senior Wetland Scientist with Time Bond, and I'm just going to do a plan swap here real quick. Can I stand up here? Or do I need
You do whatever you want.
Anybody with a microphone?
We do want you to try to be near a microphone, though, so the record is complete. We do have Mr. Producer back there who, he'll tell you if you need to move, okay?
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to go over a quick introduction of the site layout, that I'm going to shift over and let Jean talk about our stormwater management that we're proposing for the site, and then I'm going to take back over and walk you through our wetland impacts and our proposed wetland restoration and replication for the site. So for a quick overview, we are proposing 250 residential units at the site to redevelop the site. It's currently an existing baseball field and parking lot next to the West Mill Complex, and the units will be spread across two buildings. There will be Building A, which is on the southwest property line that will contain 97 units. That building is entirely outside of wetland resource areas and their buffer zones. The second building, which is residential building B, is in the middle of the parcel, which you'll see here. You can see that far, and I know Amy also has it up on the screen there for everyone. That is the larger of the two buildings. It will contain 153 residential units. That building will be located within the 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zones. In addition, there will be a maintenance building, which will be located on the northwestern corner of the property next to the wetlands. There. And that will just essentially house equipment and other materials for the facility and grounds upkeep. As you may well imagine, with these buildings, we'll need to also redevelop a portion of the site to provide adequate parking. At present, we're proposing a total of 434 spaces. 410 spaces will be on the site. 24 spaces will be on-street parking. And we also propose that 100 of these proposed spaces will be shared spaces between the Avalon community and the existing West Mill development for some shared parking utilization between the complementary uses. So it'll help us to minimize the required parking on site through that parking share. There will also be internal roadways that will be constructed on the site to provide better traffic flow and also enhanced pedestrian access with sidewalks that will enable pedestrians to safely visit and utilize the adjacent East and West Mill amenities. In addition, we're also going to be doing some landscaping along the walkways and around the buildings. The details of those plantings are within the narrative, and if you need, I can walk you through those in a little bit. And those landscape specifications are separate from the plant specifications for the wetland mitigation. In addition, we're also proposing a number of construction best management practices to help avoid any adverse impacts to resource areas that are on or near the site. We'll be using erosion control barriers to delineate the work area perimeter. Currently, we're proposing straw wattles and silt fence, or equivalent at the Commission's recommendation. We're also proposing that stockpiles are located outside of resource areas and their buffer zones. And we're also proposing that any stockpiles are going to be completely enclosed by erosion controls to prevent any runoff of the stockpiles into the adjacent areas. And catch basin inlet protections are also proposed to prevent any sort of sedimentation into any nearby storm drain systems. And so that's the nuts and bolts of the site layout. I'm going to turn it over to Jean really quickly just to go over the stormwater. She's our stormwater expert, and then we can talk about the wetlands.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jean Christie. I'm a senior engineer with Ty & Bond. I'm going to try and be quick and not have a coughing fit. So here goes. The existing stormwater management system on the property today includes catch basins within the existing parking lot. The northern area of the site that is undeveloped, that includes the large wetland area, generally drains northwesterly off-site. Under proposed, back to existing conditions real quick, the parking area today drains to a drainage channel that's on the western property line, so it's on the bottom of your page. That is not a jurisdictional resource area as deemed by the conservation agent, and we propose to remove that drainage channel as part of our development. As such, we're proposing to improve all the stormwater collection and disposal practices on site. We're using deep sump hooded catch basins, proprietary treatment units to improve the water quality prior to subsurface infiltration systems. There's 2 of them that we're proposing at this time. We are also proposing a bioretention area, and that's in, how am I going to explain this, on the western side of the larger building and the parking island that's there. All of these infiltration systems and treatment systems do ultimately have a discharge, which is to the wetland to the north of the project, but those discharges have been designed to comply with the Massachusetts stormwater standards and with the town's regulations. As previously mentioned, we do have the stormwater peer review those comments received. We have comments received from the department relative to stormwater. We are working through those. We don't foresee any substantial changes in the overall look and scheme of the stormwater management system. We do have a little more work to do regarding erosion and sedimentation control plan and looking further into construction period stormwater management. And I think that's it. It's a pretty simple system. It's not terribly complex. If you have any questions.
Joe?
I just want to hear, actually, a few questions for Amy first, and if Amy can't answer, we'll go to the applicant. The wetland line is defined and confirmed, so we're not dealing with an abstract line, we have a real
That's
line.
right. The commission issued an ORAD.
Through the ORAD.
Yep, through the
We're
ORAD.
working from that. Okay.
Yep.
The plan is submitted, is it complying, or is it seeking any waivers from either 25 no disturb or 50-foot no builds?
It's seeking waivers for wetland fill, 25-foot no disturb, and 50-foot no build.
All three?
All three.
All three.
So why are you here? We don't allow it. Period. I've been on this commission 24 years, we don't allow it. Go back and redesign it. I'm all set.
Let's get the rest of the commission.
Hold on.
You don't want to have, I can talk about the wetlands and
No,
the history,
let's not.
okay.
Just bear with me. You can, I may ask you a wetland question in a second, but just, my understanding is, this project, has it gone through technical review?
Horsley Witten has done a first brush.
But the technical review committee with the town,
Oh,
have we
TRC.
gone through technical review?
It was during, when Agent Hughes was here,
All right,
so she
is
was a
tech
part of that
rev- it's done?
process.
Tech review is
Yes.
done?
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And we've had a number of site visits and meetings with both Agent Hughes, and then Amy
So-
was able to meet with us at the site last week as well, prior to the issuance of her comment letter.
all right, so you're in receipt of Amy's comment
Yes, we
letter?
are, and we have a
Right,
draft
so you see that
response.
there's a
We
lot
just need to
going on,
finalize it.
right? And also, I notice in your application on page 4-1, you have section 4 alternatives analysis.
Correct.
You have to understand that Mr. Lynch is not wrong. We very rarely grant waivers on general principle. The waivers are dependent upon an alternatives analysis that is compelling, and it shows that there is really no viable or feasible alternative. Reading your alternatives analysis, whoever was the author of the alternative, I'm not convinced that there's no viable or feasible alternative. You lay out alternatives. You just have a preferred alternative that you want. And this is being third-party reviewed, right?
Yes.
Both for stormwater and what else besides stormwater? Is there anything else? There's no question on the line. They have an ORAD.
Right,
So it's just a stormwater being reviewed?
right.
And do we have any question, or do we disagree with their description of the wetlands or their location of the wetlands?
I don't think we disagree with where the wetlands are located.
Okay, okay.
They're not flagged in the field, so that needs to get done.
Yeah, there are some residual flags, and in our response to your
Right,
comments,
we
we
do,
will
right.
be survey locating those flags that were
We were
approved under the
able
ORAD.
to locate.
So there's a lot
to
to be done here.
Well, and if you will allow me to also provide a discussion of this rather atypical bordering vegetated wetland that in part has really influenced the way that everything's
I won't deny
designed.
you the right to speak, but I just want to caution you that we're all very cognizant of what needs to be done, and we sort of consider your application at this point incomplete.
Okay.
And incompleteness usually means no hearing. So you can present
Okay, thank you.
and be brief and just understand that,
Yes,
okay?
certainly.
But I would like, before you
Yes.
continue, I'd like to get some feedback from the commissioners first. It might help you, too.
Okay.
This way, we know where everybody stands on this project. Because I have a commissioner here that does not like waivers at all. So, and I have some questions also. I understand from what I've read, like I said, I went through it quickly. You haven't done any test pits yet.
There have been a number of borings that were done during the ANRAD process, and because of the complicated and highly disturbed nature of the wetland scientists that had completed the delineation actually brought on a certified soil scientist, and they conducted approximately 11 or 12 test pits throughout the baseball field, so we have all of that data. And then once we have finalized our design through the commission and planning board review comments, we will be conducting final test pits to refine any other design details that are needed.
Okay, because
Is any of this site? That's from Christie. Christie or Chrissy?
It's Jean.
Jean. Your last name?
All the
Is
time,
that your
it's
last name?
fine.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Does any of your design rely upon groundwater infiltration, whether a BMP or, part of your management of your
Nope.
volume?
No, good question. Yeah, it does. And what we've done is we've located the subsurface infiltration system in areas where we require fill. There is quite a bit of topo change across this site. We do have a retaining wall along the northern and western ends of the parking lot. So and that's where the infiltration system is, so that we have fill underneath it that will bring in, which will
So
be
a lot of us who've grown
sandier.
up in town here and have lived here an awful long time know the various misuses of the land out in this area over the decades. And in any sort of introduction of groundwater into substrate soils, we want to know what's there and what it's coming up against.
Yeah.
And we want to make certain that you guys are aware of it and design it to not radiate any plume further downstream or further into the soil horizon than what you expect, knowing the soil's condition to be.
Right.
And
And I think that's
don't rely on borings
the
alone.
risk we're taking is proposing these systems without knowing exactly what's there. We have some data, but not that's very specific data. But once we work through all peer review comments, technical comments, to finalize those locations, that design, this whole treatment system, then we can go in and look at the test pits and make sure that any of our assumptions were accurate, and if they're not, we need to make more changes.
I was just jumping on your test pit question, so.
That's
No,
okay.
no, I agree completely.
Well, because like Ms. Lynch said, a lot of us have been around here a long time, and I remember when Davidson Ferber was a mill. And quite honestly, a lot of that parking lot, and on the other side and down the street, they just deposited their ash from the foundry, wherever they could. And I guarantee you there's some there. The other question is, and like I said, I only half read it. You were digging a full basement, correct? Like 8-foot cellar holes?
There would be some excavation for the foundation, but there's no basement. It's a slab on
No, but I
grade
mean,
construction.
you're gonna go 8 feet, that's what I'm saying.
What, to
About
dig
8
the
feet.
to dig the foundation?
Like a full foundation you're gonna go for, or just a frost wall?
No, it'll be footings, structural footings. I can get details from
Well,
an architect of how
Because if you
deep
go
that.
8 feet down, like you're gonna dig a full foundation, I guarantee you're gonna be in the water table. And you have no dewatering plan on this plan at all.
There
It's
is
just-
a dewatering discussion within our project
As-
narrative in
as
section
need-
3.
It says as needed. Believe me, you're gonna need it.
What section is it?
Exactly.
What section is that dewatering plan?
Section 3, at the end of section 3 in our construction BMPs,
So those,
3.2.5.
for me, for my input, the 25, the wetlands and the 25 is, I don't think, I've been on for like 15 years myself, and I have never heard us approve, and this commission here longer than me, I've heard that they've approved filling and building. I think part of your building is right on, it's in the 25, I believe.
Amanda's prepared to sort of go through everything and talk about the baseball
Yeah,
field and
well,
talk
well,
about and all.
But that's why I was, when I had your butters.
We want to be expedient. I mean, I'm telling you, if you've got a building that's closer than 50 feet, it's not going to be allowed. Start over.
And that's what I was trying to explain to all the abutters who were here tonight, that the plan as proposed was not acceptable. So I didn't want them to sit here all this time knowing that, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get abutter input as long as it's stormwater related. But those are the issues I have myself, is the digging. You're gonna be in the water, because that's wet, you've been out there. So that you go anywhere between, beyond 4 feet, you're gonna hit some serious water. And then soils, I guarantee they're gonna find ash there.
After the other recent project we've dealt with high density and the introduction of mostly infiltrated water and the astounding impacts off-site of leachate water carrying materials and chemicals that we didn't expect
Yeah.
to move through. I am very very sensitive and very cognizant to the fact that we want to know what the heck is down there and where
Yeah.
this water's going.
Because I thought I saw, like I said, I could be wrong, I thought I saw like 17,000 cubic yards of material is gonna be moved. That's a lot of material. I thought I saw that in this pamphlet that I read. Like I said, I spent an hour on it, I don't think I've touched it all, but there's some things that jumped out at me, but that's as far as I'll go. Deb?
I just agree with Commissioner Lynch on all of his comments, and I support his view. That's it.
John?
Yes, Sean.
Yes, so I am totally in favor of staying out of the buffer zone, any zones. It's, historically, we don't give waivers except for incredibly special and exceptional circumstances. And, there've been a lot of homeowners and property owners that have come up in front of us over the years, and we've had to send them back over much smaller issues than a 250-unit building. And obviously, there's no requirement, I don't think, in any code that the building be 250 units. So, I think you have to stay out of those areas. And that's why everybody's a little, I think on this side, a little surprised that we're seeing this because, we've been pretty consistent for a long time, and I'm surprised that the project got to this point, and we're seeing it in the condition we're seeing it, so.
For the record, we would have made the same decision whether you were out there or not.
Yeah,
If I may, when the commission's done, I would just like a few more minutes.
sure. And if it's just one other thought, I mean, I know there are alternative, we've seen a lot of different alternatives analysis over the years. But an alternative is, it's not, there's no necessity to have things this big. So you need to, at least from my perspective, you need to stay within the constraints of the buffer zones that they provide.
Yeah. Just for clarification, I think that there are reasons for that. I think.
Well,
You can justify your own way of your alternatives analysis to maximize the build-up to the extent of your pro forma. Our alternative is make your project smaller and fit it within the confines of the no disturb and no build, period. There's no in between. I'm trying to be explicitly clear and save you as a developer money with consultants who, for some reason, don't understand what our expectation is and has been for decades.
I would say-
You don't do it. You just don't do it.
Respectfully, sir, I think we went through the TRC process. We showed a similar project. We got comments from Jennifer previously. We reacted to those comments. We then we prepared an NOI with the intent to submit it and present it here tonight. I appreciate the stand that the commission is making tonight, but I will tell you that is the first time I've heard it. So that I have heard it from the town.
We will double check that. I'm shocked to
Nobody
believe
at
that.
technical review told you that we adhere by the 2550, that we don't waive the 2550. You didn't hear that at TRC?
No, I did not.
If I may, given the presumption of significance associated with this wetland, it is a managed, maintained baseball field, so it is a BVW that is subject to frequent mowing, and it's become increasingly wet over the years because of the soil, and Jen saw it as an opportunity for this area to then become isolated with conservation boundaries and for us to restore it and leave it undisturbed and let it actually revert to a more natural habitat
In
while
exchange for
being able
waiving,
to
in exchange
redevelop.
for a waiver? Is that what you're saying?
Full compliance and still take advantage of those enhancements.
I've worked with Jen for 12 years, and I would be willing to bet I have never, ever heard her approve anything.
Well, I have it in
suggesting she
writing.
approved anything.
Not going to debate that at this table.
not important.
We know what we do, and we know what she did.
We're not gonna,
That's the end of that.
we're not gonna go back and forth on he said, she said. What we'd like you to understand, what the commission's trying to get you to understand is, we're not gonna issue a waiver. And if I may, just give you a comment very quickly on your dewatering, 3.2.5. I would expand the method at which you, if you ever eventually get to dewatering, if you get there, you need to do more extensive dewatering in terms of collection, detention, and testing before release. Because we suspect, and it was borne out on a project, another project in town somewhere that I'm not going to identify, the dewatering was insufficient, and the water that leached into the wetland prior to us capturing it had high levels of pH, bordering on hazmat. We don't know what's down there, and whatever you get out of there not only needs to be dewatered, but contained in fracture tanks and tested before you release a drop, if you get to that point. But
Any
in order to-
stockpiled materials would be tested.
You understand what I'm saying, right?
In accordance with the MCP,
Okay,
yes,
so
I do
we're going to
understand.
be real, because we just all learned a great deal about it, we're going to be very specific about what we want when it comes to dewatering. But
I appreciate
in
that.
order
Thank
for you to
you.
get there, you've got to revise the plans and adhere to the 2550. If you can't do that, it's unlikely you're going to get to dewater anything, I think. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
So- Sorry if I just make one comment. I want everybody to know, just for clarification purposes, that we did do environmental reports at the beginning of the project, and there were no recognized environmental conditions associated with the property. So I just want to put that on the record as far as the information that I have. I know that a lot of people have lived here a long time and have different understandings of maybe things that have happened on site, but we had an environmental engineer go out and look at it for us.
Is this a net fill site, or is it a cut site, or is it a balanced site?
I don't think we've done that full analysis yet. We're working through some of,
Now, you guys aren't, you're developers, you're not contractors. You would contract this out with a site developer.
Avalon Bay, we would have a site subcontractor. The project manager and the superintendents would be Avalon Bay people, but we would have a site subcontractor. But frankly,
Again, I mean, within the management of the project and developing a pro forma to understand the financial feasibility, if estimates were to bring fill material in, no hard and fast that we're not allowing any recycled concrete, no recycled glass. That was those, in fact, materials that contributed in a very big way to the pollution at that other site. So if this is a net fill, and if you're thinking that, the cheaper alternative is to use those recycled materials as opposed to bank run gravel or processed gravel, go back and run your numbers with processed gravel, because we're not going to allow either of those materials in here.
And we're aware that DEP allows it, but we don't. Our standards are substantially higher than DEP's. We have a tremendous amount of experience with RCA and other types of fill. It's not happening in this town. It's just not happening. But to get there, you got to revise the footprint. Okay?
You're gonna need some time. Plus, historically, this board, this commission does not approve any site until planning is done, because I understand you're receiving quite a bit of resistance from planning, from abutters and plant. They have questions also, because they might turn the buildings around, they might shrink a building, they might add a building. I don't know what they're gonna do. So to look over stormwater, it might be totally different. So historically, what we do is wait till planning approves a project, and then we'll review the stormwater or whatever issues we have with the project. That's when we'll approve or deny it.
I mean, as much of a hard ass as I've been tonight, I want to be careful on a project of this type, however it evolves. I think there's going to be an iterative process that balances both conservation and planning questions simultaneously, and it would be inefficient to do it in two steps. I think they got to run concurrently. They really ought to. But I think we're way premature in having that. I think, very step one before they go even have further discussions with planning is comply with our regulations and our
As it's
bylaw.
been, exactly, I agree. The questions that we have are irrelevant in the fact that this commission will not allow wetlands fill and building within the 25-foot no disturb. It's not going to happen. You can jump up and down through cartwheels.
I wasn't
It won't happen.
suggesting that. I was just asking for a chance for her to explain the ball fields and why we came to where we came.
That's
I think
fine.
that there's a history. We're relatively new to this site, frankly, but RCG and others have been involved for a longer period of time. I think we, based on the feedback I'm getting tonight, we may have gotten some different feedback than we're getting tonight, but I'm hearing you, and we will come back with something else. If you'd like to hear from Amanda.
We'll give you her time.
Sure,
Is any-
just to
any
talk
other
about the
applicant
baseball
would-
field and what it is and what it
There's
isn't.
one to talk about the
Yes.
wetland sign.
That's fine.
Sure, that's
Thank
fine,
you.
thanks.
And I feel like this is important to discuss now with any future iterations that we have with the site plan. And part of this layout through our discussions, primarily with Jen, I know Amy's on now and she's been brought in sort of at the end of this prior to our NOI filing. The baseball field is just such a highly disturbed area, and it's not, the presumption of significance of it relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the functions and values that it serves really aren't there. But left undisturbed, if it's no longer a baseball field, it can really revert and turn back into a rather high-functioning wetland habitat. And so because we saw these buffer zones that were buffering a baseball field, it's, what are they really buffering? What is the significance of the resource area that they're buffering? And so, aside from the development on site, we also saw an opportunity, myself as a wetland scientist, to bring some ecological value also to that system through the restoration in addition to, the required replication. And so that was sort of our logic in looking at this system. And I know Avalon, really it was also committed to increasing the aesthetics through that ecological improvement within that wetland. And so that is essentially the background to that as far as the function and the value of the wetland, because it's a baseball field. I understand it meets the soil definition of a wetland, but it doesn't have wetland vegetation or other indicators of hydrology. And so from a regulatory standpoint, that is how we have made the assertions and the conceptual layout that we've made through our conversations with technical review, with Agent Hughes, and some of our conversations with Agent Maxner. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
You don't think that baseball field is acting as an aquifer?
It's so poorly drained. It's hard to tell.
It's going.
I'm
it's
not a
going somewhere,
I'm not a
right?
hydrologist, so I can't
Maybe
comment.
that's what it would appear to have some value as.
I looked at it under the ORAD with a very cautious eye that the only reason it's not a wetland is because they continue to mow it. And had they not made the ball field back when we were devastating wetlands back in the day when it was allowed, it would be a wetland still. And the fact that it's vacant and functioning as a baseball field, functioning as a mowed meadow, if you will, has a higher ecological value than any restoration you propose with encroachment. I just don't see how one begets the other and how one remediates or enhances the other. I think it's a red herring to say that we're going to get enhancement by letting the baseball field revert, when the reality is, if they just simply stop mowing, it would revert. But they're allowed to mow it, and they do mow it, and we knew that during the ORAD, which is why we were very careful in defining what the resource area really was by soils and hydrology. So I'm just not buying into that at this point.
I understand that, and just from my standpoint as a wetland scientist, and doing a peer review of Kurt Young's delineation, and the fact that, he, with 30, 40 years of experience, had to still bring in a soil scientist because the soils were still so inconclusive out there, that it was that much of a questionable boundary whether or not that was a resource area. And so that has also played into my characterization of this area and as far as its functions and values relative to the Wetlands Protection Act. And I guess, I don't know if anyone has anything else, but.
No, we understand the basis that you formed your opinion. We may not agree.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you taking a few more minutes just to hear my point of view.
As you can see, you know the direction of the commission. You're not going to fix it in 2 weeks. So how much time do you think you need to, I know you're going to move forward, try to. So how much time do you think you need to come before us again?
I would suggest a meeting in early September.
September?
And we have a room full of abutters, so,
I know.
I think they've heard what our perspective. Gathering public comments allowed. I'm not sure if there's anything more they can contribute at this point. We invite them to future meetings, but, if someone wishes to add something that we didn't consider, this is the time they might want to say that.
Can I ask a question of the gentleman at the podium?
Sure.
So you're going back to your team. You understand the points that we're making
Sure.
that we consider
Yeah.
need change, the setbacks and the dewatering and the alternatives. You understand all that, right? It's all clear?
Yeah, heard you.
I didn't want to send you out here, send you back to the drawing board with a misunderstanding of what we're saying.
Nope, I heard you, and we're also, as I said at the beginning, we're getting feedback. We've received feedback from the commission. We've received feedback from the planning board.
Yeah.
We've received feedback from town departments. We're trying to take all those comments and sort of triangulate them into a project that meets those things. We thought that, in honesty, we thought that this application had some benefits. I've heard differently tonight, so let us do some work. I need to talk to the owners of the West Mill as it relates to the work that they've done in the past, and we'll come back to you with something else.
What's the September meeting date?
September 11th.
September 11th? September 11th is the first meeting, and then 2 weeks after that is the second meeting.
25th.
We'll likely have, we have planning board next week, and then we have 3 weeks or so.
Why don't you go for the second meeting in September? Not box yourself in unless you want to come in on the 11th.
I think we should come in on the 11th, because I may have feedback from the planning board and an alternate proposal to show at that time, if that agrees with the commission.
No, is this going to require renoticing of abutters? Because it's going,
If we do 3 meetings, it will. 2 meetings only because we have abutters.
yeah, I'm just trying to,
I'd be happy to come back on August 28th and provide an update briefly.
just to give update, and that way you don't have to renotice all the abutters. They'll know based
Yeah.
on what we're saying tonight.
Yes, the butters certainly
No, it's just.
know when everything's going on. No, I agree.
No, I understand, but
They know what's going on.
you're required under our bylaw
Yep.
to renotice.
Yes. So-
If it goes beyond a certain number of days.
Sure. So what I'd ask then is to come back in August and update the commission as it relates to the changes we're making and relate to the planning
Second
board.
meeting in August, okay?
Sure, that's great, thank you.
Second meeting in August,
August 28th.
August 28th.
Before we close it, is there any butters that want to speak up more about what we've said tonight, or are we good enough till August
You want
28th?
to just come back on the 28th?
Good, Betsy, you're up.
Hold on.
Come up here, come all the way up.
So if you have questions, you got to go to the podium, guys, because we need you on TV and on the record. Come on,
Over here, come over here first. Go on the podium,
please come up to the podium, please.
and say who you are behind the podium.
Can someone please delineate the exact point of all the wetlands? Also, they have been filling in.
It's been done. It was
Well, I
done.
don't know where, I'm trying to see it myself. Also, they filled in the stream, they've been filling in the stream, whatever they call the, what do you call it? The culvert, they've been filling in the culvert. It's been mowed nicely the last month, and the baseball field has not been mowed. It gets mowed, then it doesn't. I've lived here, I see it every day from my deck.
So that-
I'm just curious, what exactly, where are the wetlands for my house?
Well,
Well, we have an ORAD
I
somewhere.
don't know what's your address?
116 High Street,
Okay.
on the
We
big
have an
White
ORAD
House.
on file, Amy?
So
Amy, I think the previous plan, not the grading plan, but the site layout might not be as busy.
And where
The
is that
figure one-
culvert? Is that part of the wetlands?
Not that
Remember there used to be a pond down there? We used to go skating on?
Yeah, the one right
I'm
below.
not gonna date us.
Which one?
That's true.
On the top?
Go down one below the blue one.
This one?
No, up one, that one, yeah.
Hey Louie, I'm retired, I have nothing else to do
Yeah, I
but
think that's
this.
There you
less
go.
busy.
Good for you.
If I may, so we color-coded this plan for ease of viewing, and if you're able to see the green line,
Yeah, where's High Street?
High Street is going to be off to your right, and so the green line is the perimeter of the bordering vegetated wetland. And then, once you see where it transitions into the blue line, that is where we have the bank.
Do you know
with
which
the-
one of
with the
those lots
channel.
is yours?
I know which one
Please look out your back, yours is right at the baseball field, right up the back, right?
that says wetland replication area of 7,000?
Is that your?
Okay,
Right there.
okay.
That's hers.
Okay. And so the culvert is not in the wetlands?
No.
Okay.
No, the culvert's
The
over.
other side.
Culverts on the other side.
All right, so are we
All
good
right.
enough till August 28th? August 28th? No, we have somebody else wants to come up.
One more fellow. So just tell us your name, okay, and address.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Steven Saraceno. I live at 102 High Street. I've lived there since approximately 2006. I am the one that's right to the right where there's an angle on the lot line there. Okay, I'm in a two-family property there. I also built the home that's next to that at 90 High Street. I've been out here for quite some time. I've seen a lot of changes happen, obviously. I've lived in this town since 1986. A few questions that I have about this site. We had mentioned that the stream on the western side is not jurisdictional. I'd just like to know why it's not jurisdictional. And
The commission, it didn't overcome the presumption of significance, and the commission recognized it as a drainage feature.
okay. Okay.
If it were a natural brook all by itself, we've had a different outtake from it, but it was certainly part of what was a brook feature, but the whole pond was. So this drainage ditch was deliberately, 100 years ago,
Yeah.
dug and designed to be exactly a conveyance of water and, for the mill area.
Correct, and I
it
mean,
functions as that, and it's continued to function,
Okay.
so it's not jurisdictional.
but it's a component feeding into the Sutton Pond ultimately, correct?
So from the hydraulic perspective, we would have expected, and I imagine the plan does, looks at introduction of this new water being collected into that same area, and its additive situation should not exceed what's already there. So we haven't even gotten to that point of discussion, but from a flow of water perspective, we do have review jurisdiction.
Oh, I
But
understand.
not from the resource area.
Okay. I mean, they're proposing to fill that area and put a system above that, which would ultimately add more water to the system that's leaching now in that area from a hydraulic standpoint, correct?
That, we haven't dived into that
We
deeply.
don't know what
We
they're
don't know
proposing
yet.
yet.
We don't know
Okay.
what they're proposing yet.
Okay.
We will certainly have to review that.
Okay.
That's why I was hesitant for you people to come, what to say, because we don't know, the project as it stands now is not approvable. I did see that earlier. So the stormwater will change, what they're gonna do. So we can't comment on what they're thinking of doing, because it can totally change.
No, I can understand that. I mean, the pre and post hydrology will change based on the size of the project. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is the infiltration system that they're proposing, whether it be the size that it is now or a smaller size, is going to add to that swale that's beneath it now at some point.
That would depend on the stormwater management system they design.
Right.
We
There are
don't
many,
know.
yeah, many different ways to manage
Okay.
it. We don't know what, we haven't dived that deeply into it.
Okay.
We
Because we
will
asked them to
as this thing evolves, but
Okay.
we're not there yet.
All right,
They're going to
appreciate
reduce
it.
the footprint, which is going to change all the hydrology.
Okay. Another question that I have, and it may not completely relate to this project tonight, but I've noticed that on the west side of the West Mill, that there was some sort of a drainage pond there, or a detention pond, and it has been filled in through the years. I wasn't at any prior meetings prior to that building being torn down or what have you, so I don't know what came about from that and why it was filled in. If anybody has any information on that?
Off the top of our heads, no.
Okay, because,
It would require some research into the files.
okay.
It's west of West Mill?
Yeah, if you look at where the old mill used to be, the portion that they took down, it's just, lack of a better expression, it's on the parking lot side of that. And there was a retention pond of some sort that was there. Animals were definitely living in it.
That's between the two mill buildings on the west
No,
side?
it's on, right now, it's adjacent to, we don't have another, no, hold on one second.
Between Jade and the other building, correct?
Let me see.
All the restaurants are on one side, that's one building.
Yeah, you're on the farthest point of the West Mills. You're on the parking lot side, right adjacent to their loading docks. They have a driveway area that goes down off of the right-of-way that's there now that feeds the West Mill. Just adjacent to that, there was a retention pond of some sort. It has now been filled in.
Is that where the pipe burst was, Joe?
No, that's the other side of the
No,
street.
but-
That was East Mill. That was East Mill.
Yeah, and they have had a pipe, a 2-inch forced line coming out of the lower section of that building, pumping into a catch basin for quite some time. They've recently removed it and cleaned up the site. I think it's fantastic. I'm happy to hopefully find out that maybe the landscaping company is all done with their work with Columbia Gas, and they're not going to be using the parking lot anymore, because in the last couple of days, they're gone, and the line is gone as well. So I just don't know what's going on there in regards to groundwater. Which brings me to my next point that I haven't been able to get an answer from yet, is there are old observation and monitoring wells on this property. The plan delineates 3 of them. There are actually 4. There may be more. There's no record with DEP as of yet. I've got some phone calls into them as to when they were dug or when they were punched in, or what they were for. But I would also like an answer. Now, I know that there's probably a 21E report that might have been done in ownership exchange, but I think we ought to know what is in that grounds, in those grounds. Mr. Lynch, you had mentioned that, you know, there have been many things that have happened in this property through the years. And I am concerned that if they are going to dig some deep foundations, whether they be 8 feet deep or 4 feet deep, they got to go down at least 4 feet. You got to have frost protection, even with a slab on grade. So I think I calculated and I provided some numbers, roughly around 17,000 cubic yards of material is going to come out of that property if they go down 8 feet. So even half of that, could be quite a bit of pollutants in there if the soil is polluted. We don't know. I just like to know. As an abutting neighbor, I'd like to know if there's going to be contaminated material pulled off this site.
So the question that I raised was one of caution, knowing that of any mill property, there's always been eons of things that have happened out there, some of which are documented, many of which are not. The caution was, though, prior to advancing the stormwater analysis, test pits. So I was following up on the test pit question. The test pits were appropriate to know what the heck we had and what the effect might be, if any, of infiltrating groundwater into whatever material's there. That was the context of my question. Not so much as alleging that there's nefarious materials out there. There might be, but we don't know.
Well, you mentioned a lot of ash and stuff like that, so we don't know what else is in there. I mean, if you look on the DEP's website, you'll find that through the years, it's an industrial area. Obviously, they're going to have some chemical spills. They've had a number of them through the years, so we just don't know what type of materials may be left in these grounds. Even though the DEP has gone in and said, okay, it's been cleaned, it's been rectified, or what have you, I just don't know.
So the fine line between this discussion and where we sit at this table is, there are items that may or may not be covered under 21E off our table, and what's on our table is how the stormwater management is, how the stormwater is managed, and how that affects the resource areas. That is what we do.
I agree.
And we're asking the question only from that perspective. And, you know, I think we're going to flush out, no pun intended, the question as it goes on. And it remains to be seen at this point. We just don't have enough info.
All right, okay.
I appreciate, it sounds like you're concerned with the same things we are, maybe for different reasons.
No, similar reasons. Some of the things that I do want to hone in on, Mr. Manzi, you had mentioned that you wanted to make sure that they perfectly understood what it was that this board was asking them to comply with. Question that I have is, if they propose any sort in future plans of wetland replication, should they be looking at wetland replication such that it doesn't affect any of the abutting lots? This plan does in its proposed state right now. If they were able to replicate as they're showing, it would move those buffer zones out on the abutting properties. I don't think that that's fair for the abutters.
We just haven't gotten there yet.
Because this was just a presentation tonight. Like I said.
That is a question I posed in my comment letter.
If I may, through the commission, 2 points. If this provides any assurances in accordance with the Mass Contingency Plan, any stockpile soils that are going to be disposed of off-site need to be sampled, and I believe it's at least one sample per, I think it's 1,000 cubic yards. I'm not an LSP, but I could certainly get that information, but anything is required to be sampled in accordance with the MCP for any sort of different analytics as far as off-site disposal.
And I think, as you stated earlier, it sounds like you know the pre and post have to match. The post-construction conditions can't exceed the pre. So those are things that we're going to be working on when we see what's actually coming here.
Okay.
Well, Steve's point, which I think Amy picked up on, differs a little bit from what you just said, Al. It's not so much stormwater runoff. It's that if we're making wetland enhancements, that those areas that are enhanced may in fact encroach further or closer to abutting properties, unintentionally having impacts on those abutters.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's the question I heard.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's not necessarily a question. It's a statement that I would hope they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
That is something we had hoped to discuss tonight as far as alternate mitigation locations or off-site replication or additional restoration in lieu of replication, because we do understand that encumbrance on the abutting properties. There's just limited land to do it on. But it's a moot point at this point.
When we see what's...
Yeah, we are aware of all these variables, and Agent Maxner has pointed those out as well.
Presented was not we didn't go that far because we can't, because there's nothing we can do.
Respectfully, I understand
This
that.
was one of them.
Yeah,
This was
right.
the application. I mean, it was pretty extensive.
Right. You know, they had preliminary meetings before they had any public meetings, and I was present at those, and I was asking questions that there were no answers given for, and everyone keeps telling me that not yet, not yet, not yet. Yet when I look in the bylaws, there's timelines associated with their applications, so an answer needs to be made by a certain time. No, I understand, not with you. But, you know, it's a constructive approval, you know, so I'm just trying to make sure that we're staying within those timelines.
They can't get construction approval or get a permit until they sign section Form U signed by her, stating that the conservation doesn't have any issues. So they'll never get a building permit until we give it the
Understood.
One department, only one department.
And the first submittal goes to Board of Health. If Board of Health's got 45 days to give their review as well. Board of Health wasn't aware about the observation wells on this property. So
Surprising.
that surprises me when they're shown on the plan. So the other thing that I'd just like to make sure is right now, and I think I already heard this earlier this evening, is the line has been delineated, and it's been approved, and it's been agreed upon by us as well as them.
That was filed in...
So there's really no more argument of,
No, the
hey,
line-
it was
the
really...
line is the line.
The line is the line.
Yeah.
Hydric soils, vegetation, otherwise, the line is the line.
Yeah, now what we're talking about is, when they bring us a footprint that we can approve, then we start getting into the weeds on everything else.
Understand. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's a gentleman standing back. Oh, you...
No, just resting.
You want to be the first one out? Anybody else want to be heard? None answer, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so the meeting's going to be continued till August 28th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And one abstention.
Thank you for your time and feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks, we look forward to seeing you again.
He means it, he means it.
I'm sure you can get it done.
A lot of work. I think I'm going to keep this.
Yeah, no, they can comply. They can comply.
No, you see the last one?
Yeah, hold on, let's let the crowd...
What? Oh, sorry, Betsy.
Let's get the crowd out for a minute.
You're welcome. Believe it or not, she was my first girlfriend. What you do now?
I want his shirt.
The black shirt?
I know. It's that time of year.
I want it now. I want it off his back.
No, we can't do that. We'll get in trouble.
Television. Misbehaved.
Yeah, you have a bare-chested commissioner on TV.
I can't.
Next one is
You have all
GLSD.
these,
Mr. Chairman, I think the next item is GLSD.
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we all set? We got everybody out of here?
We're just giving everybody a chance to leave.
It has to continue anyway because we don't have a,
What?
we don't have a file number. It's going to continue.
Yeah, it doesn't, huh? 242, no DP number, Riverview Street, GLSD.
Do you guys have a file number, or not yet? I'm sorry?
Followed up with DP today. We're hoping to have it early next week.
All right, very good, very good. Okay. So we know we're not going to close tonight, we're going to continue.
Somebody doesn't like you over there, evidently. I can't, I thought this was gonna be an RDA, not a... But somebody from,
So, let me, my name is Richard Weir. I'm the Capital Projects Manager at Greater Lawrence Sanitary District. On my far left is Sherry Cousins. She's the Executive Director at GLSD. And we have Katie Barnacle and Rob Adams from AECom, our engineering firm. So I'm going to just give a little bit of introduction here, past what I just introduced, and then turn it over to our technical people. So the Riverside Pump Station is down at the intersection of North Main and Riverview Street. And it is our major pump station that pumps all the sewage from North Andover and other communities that are in the district to our treatment plant. The pumping station is powered by 2 electrical feeds. And unfortunately, back in October, when everybody lost power, we lost power too. And you probably saw some press about overflows. So we received an administrative consent order recently from DEP telling us that we needed to provide a third power source, which was basically a standby generator. And that's what this project is to add a standby generator there so that if there is a catastrophic failure of all power sources, we're not overflowing sewage into the river, and we're pumping it up to our treatment plant for proper treatment.
One huge generator.
One huge generator, you're exactly right. So I started...
Glad to hear it, by the way.
Thank you. We're also glad, well, unfortunately, we got an administrative consent order from DEP, but we're also glad that the state was able to give us a $2 million grant to help defray that cost. Keeps the rates of sewer bills down that we charge the municipalities, and then they charge the townsfolk. So I originally started the conversation when Jennifer Hughes was here, and she came down and looked at the site, and I gave her a plan of 4 different alternates. And I was under the impression that she had shared that with at least the chairman or the board, and the site that we preferred was also the site that you preferred. It's in a grassed area, adjacent to our electrical switchgear, which is the logical place to put the standby generator so you can feed the power into that. So the administrative consent order says we have to have this generator up and running by the end of the year. So we're really scrambling pretty quick to try and do that, where we've got some relief from the state on how we procure services. We're going to be soliciting it from contractors as opposed to a locked bidding period. And so we are starting to share drawings with these folks to get some of their input before we put this out. Obviously, we won't be starting any construction until we get the necessary permits from you folks and others. As we have in the last project that we did when we put in new transformers and new electrical switchgear, we will not be storing any soils on site. They'll be going up to the treatment plant in our area that we have. If there's any soils that are going to be used that day and re-backfilled, then that will be fine. But anything long-term wise, obviously they're going to have to pour a concrete slab, which our AECOM folks will get into, and then bring that soil back and put that in there. So I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to Katie and to Rob to go over the project and how we're meeting the requirements of the Conservation Commission. I would like to just say that because we got this short constraint, is if there's any way that you could maybe approve it contingent upon getting comments from DEP tonight, that would be very helpful to us. As I said, we're really under the gun construction-wise. We're not, anticipating getting going until,
The way the meeting calendar falls, it's going to be the same end effect.
Yep.
You wouldn't have anything until, at the soonest, the third,
You have a decision already written, I believe.
Do we already have it written? You wrote it?
Case.
So let's, I can come back if you got other questions,
No,
but
we want you to go fast. Just give me real quick, what are the specs on the generator? Do you know?
it's a 3,000 kilowatt generator.
3,000 kW?
Yep.
What's the source?
Diesel?
The diesel powered?
It's diesel.
You're going to have a diesel storage
Belly
tank?
tank, above ground
So
tank?
there'll be a belly, so,
This is the kind of stuff we need to know. We can go
yep,
real.
concrete slab, and I think these, AECOM will go over that, but I'll just,
Retaining wall for diesel spillage and all that stuff?
there's going to be a retention, a spill containment area.
Spill containment.
There'll be a concrete slab, the belly tank, it'll sit on top of the tank, the slab. That's about 3.5, 4 feet tall, and then the generator is up on that. It's going to be so high that there are platforms to walk up to get into the soundproofed enclosure. So
Runtime with the belly tank and with full load on it?
about 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
So certainly plenty of time to get refueled.
Why don't I introduce Rob, and he can start off, and I think any questions that you have.
For the sake of time. Sure. I would rather him answer the question of the commission, because I don't have an issue with this, and you know I don't. This should have been done a long time ago. Sure. I mean, when it comes,
So we're going to be happy that they're here.
they tell you they want something, but then they hurry up. You know. Huh?
We're gonna help you out. We're gonna get you where you need to.
So let's start with Joe, and then if you can answer the questions,
We're-
and then we'll
right down to brass
we'll just
tacks, so
approve it.
This is in an island surrounded by pavement. The actual pump station that when it fails, overflows into the river. There's an advantage to any waiver that we're talking about. We're not even talking about waivers. So what you have is during construction, you're going to have the ability to at least protect the protection. So you're going to have erosion controls around it.
Yep.
You're going to be excavating materials out. Anything that's not used the same day, hauled up to the district.
Yep.
Anything that's going to be used during the day will just be used and reused right there. Concrete will be poured, and then the unit comes in, craned in probably, set, and then your restoration. It's a pretty fast construction project, I would hope. Procurement aside, it's the hardest, it's the longest lead thing. So with regards to protection around it, what is it you're proposing? Are there catch basins that drain directly into the river? What is it we need to protect during construction?
Yep, so there's some catch basins in the vicinity of the site that we're going to be protected with silt sacks. And then we're also going to have, straw wattle or composite logs that go around any area that's disturbed to protect the river. And there is a plan within the NOI that details the locations of where we had proposed for the controls.
All right, so this is just a deep foundation, 4 or 5 feet?
Not even,
Not even.
because
You
we
want
are
to
within the flood zone, so we are elevating the slab a little bit to stay above it. So the slab itself is going to be, the concrete slab is going to be 3 to 4 feet thick, but 2.5 to 3 feet of it are going to be sticking above grade. So
on caissons or something?
we have to put it on micro piles. The soils there are reasonably well. It's once you get down to about 40 feet, there's a lot of organic material left over from the river. So we're worried about the weight of this large, as a fairly large generator. So we're going to install micro piles to help support the foundation.
Now, again, we're only asking from a wetlands protection
Correct.
perspective, and, I don't want anybody to ever think that, we're addressing sound concerns. I mean, what do the neighbors know about this thing? Any sound attenuation concerns?
So it is a sound attenuated enclosure that the unit is coming with. It's a walk-in enclosure. So a lot of times you may see generators that there is no enclosure. It's just got a skin on it, if you will. That's not this. This is in a walk-in type enclosure. It's a fairly large unit. The slab itself that it sits on is about 40 by 20. So it is a fairly large unit. 3,000 megawatt, a 3 megawatt unit is a good size unit. We did noise modeling.
Exercised once a week, or?
We're still working out those details, but it's probably going to get exercised once a month.
Once a month?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we
Critical
can,
facility?
and I think we can work that out,
Yeah,
that
work the details. I think it's
during
once a
the
week at
day
least.
when
It has to
everyone's
do with the
awake,
loads on
filters any type of
the
sound, yeah.
the facility. So the facility itself, the pump station, only sees its, to generate. In order to exercise the generator, you need to load it up about 25 to 30% of its full load. So say it's about 1,000 kW. Normally, the pump station's operating. It's not. It's operating far less than that. Under normal average flow conditions, it's under that. So we're trying to work with the district to come up with an operations and maintenance philosophy where the operators can go during, I wouldn't say at a peak flow event, but when there's higher loads so they can exercise the generator.
So, not the piling so much, but the slab itself and the generator enclosure confines, dimensionally 15 by 20 feet long, 15 across, 20?
40 by 20.
40 by 20. 40 by 20.
Right, so there are 2 platforms. Yeah, the building itself is slightly smaller. I think it's 15 feet wide by maybe 30, give or take.
So what I'm hearing is the impacts are augering in the micropiles.
Mm-hmm.
Once they're in, you're putting pile caps, which is probably this slab and platform.
Mm-hmm.
That's all elevated, nothing in the ground.
A portion of it will be in the ground, but it's not going to be a super
Minimal
deep
impact.
Not a super deep excavation, no.
I'm all set.
We're displacing flood, so we have
compensatory flood storage.
What's the volume of floodplain you?
So we are going to provide compensatory flood storage. It's about 35 cubic yards, so
15 cubic yards?
it's,
what I'm looking at?
yeah, that's a typo that we have to address. It's closer to 35. So it's this, just to give it some context, it's
So
the
where
size of
gradient can you make that up? There is nothing above floodplain on your property.
No, there is,
There
yeah.
is?
Yeah, there's a floodplain line. So we believe, so we're going to, portion of it, so it's the way we're handling stormwater, I can address two of these. We've proposed an infiltration trench, crushed stone infiltration trench around the perimeter of the generator. We have oversized that to help provide some additional compensatory flood storage with that infiltration trench. And then as part of this site, when we do some grading, we're going to remove some additional fill on the other side of this fence here to give us what we need. But we're talking about changing the grade maybe a foot or so in that area just to make up the additional storage
Lowering it.
that we're taking.
Get the
Yes.
additional storage. But that area is already above floodplain, or it's already in?
Below.
So how can you get compensatory flood storage? You have to take it from above the floodplain. You can't take it from within the floodplain.
We're providing additional storage. It's additional volume.
It has to occur above the floodplain, because the logic is when you need to have the floodplain available, it can't already be inundated. Check the regs on that. That's why I'm questioning your higher ground. Do you have higher ground that's not floodplain to compensate from? That's where you have to excavate out of. I don't think you have that.
All right, I'll go back and double check with my stormwater.
And by the way, I have no problem if there's a waiver on compensatory flood storage. I'm gonna simply say the lack of overflow storage into the river, staying in the system and going up on the hill is the way you compensate.
If I can address that? Katie Barnacle, I'm a senior wetland scientist with AECom. I think we were thinking of the volume, so that even if it was in the floodplain and we lowered the land, there would be additional volume at that point.
But that's not compensatory.
I hadn't thought of that.
Have to check the regs.
I mean,
It's nothing
typically,
new. I mean, that's-
typically it has to be adjacent and within the reaches of the waterway.
Would the commission consider a waiver for that?
Can they burn it up?
Berming's not the, oh no, that's not the problem. It's Berming would actually make it worse. What are we talking, how many cubic feet?
35 yards.
35
So it's the
cubic
size of a, no,
Cubic yards.
cubic yards.
Cubic
So
yards.
it's the size of a standard roll-off
trailer truck.
dumpster.
Yeah,
A roll-off dumpster, you know, just to
Yeah.
kind of give you some
Exactly.
perspective. So it's like 9 by 5 by 4, something like that, give or take. So
I don't want to lose, I mean, I just want to make sure the record's going to show this. We write our minutes from the tapes. The, even though you're putting pilings of to hold us up and it's within the floodplain, the context of the discussion is to prevent extraneous storage from overflowing from the system and entering the river. Every cubic foot, cubic yard of storage that goes in the river and stays within the system because of this is your compensation. I'm not waiving anything. I'm taking advantage of the thing not overflowing.
That's a good point.
But that's exactly right, though. That's exactly right. It's right on point.
So, we talked about stormwater, we talked about our compensatory flood storage, we talked about wetland protection by erosion controls, augering in is minimal, we talked about construction disturbances, I'm really not sure what else there is. Trenching, you know, that area would be over to switchgear, you're probably gonna put a transfer switch in a building by the existing switchgear.
Switch is already there, we'll be doing some conduit, underground conduit runs from generator to the switch.
So you're going underground conduit?
Underground.
So you're gonna, at some point, that's gonna be, maybe it's already been shown on some plan that we just haven't seen yet. Show
Yeah,
us
no,
that.
It's on the plan.
Okay.
Yep, so there's a total of 3 lines, so there's, and again, this is a large generator, so this is not, most people are used to 3-phase, 40 volt. This is medium voltage, this is 4160 voltage, so this is, so we're gonna have medium voltage duct bank that goes over to the switchgear. There's also a small communications and duct bank that'll go back to communicate data back and forth and alarms and status. And then there's also another duct bank that has to go back to the pump station building itself to provide 480 volt power to the generator when it's not running, so to lighting, ventilation, battery chargers, control alarms, things like that. So, but we do depict those on the plans. But though, again, those are relatively shallow excavations. I think the conduit we proposed is 4-inch PVC, 4 to 5-inch PVC for the medium voltage, and the communications and the 40 volt is 2-inch PVC. It's buried 3 feet below grade, encased in concrete for protection.
Rich, the grant, the funding you got is SRF funding? No?
Yeah, it's a grant.
The environmental bond bill.
Oh.
And it was requested by former Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives, and then Senator DiZoglio helped push it forward, with a lot of other people helping as well. So, I mean, we're really grateful that the state was able to, help us with this.
So not only is the deadline to get the work done, but it's also the funding must have some sort of threshold. I want to be clear on, why we're moving so swiftly on this.
Yeah, it's a super aggressive project schedule. Honestly, this project would normally, between design, permitting, and construction, would be probably 18 to 24 months. And a lot of that is because, the generator itself, it's a $1.5 million piece of equipment. They're not in stock. So you buy the equipment, it takes 10 months for them to manufacture it in Germany or wherever before it gets shipped over. However, for this project, we took, in an effort to try to fast track it, we did get some permissions to do some different procurement methods, and they were able to buy a generator. So the district has already purchased the generator itself, so that has saved, but quite a bit of time. But we're still, at the end of the day, we're still trying to design, permit, and have this thing constructed in what is in essence, 6 months is super, super aggressive schedule.
I'm all set. I've asked enough questions.
All right, so just real quick, you got 3 conduit runs going underground to the switchgear, and you're using PVC, it doesn't matter if you're using PVC or rigid, but three runs.
3 runs,
All right.
yes. We're using both, actually. The communications has to be in rigid steel, but
Yeah,
they're
okay.
both encased in concrete.
I see them. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
I might have missed it. I'm all for this project, so I'm just sitting here enjoying the show. How big is the diesel fuel storage tank?
The diesel tank, it's a belly tank, so it's going to sit, so we have the tank, it's the slab itself, and then on top of the slab, there's going to fit, it's a 3-foot high belly tank, holds about 8,000 gallons and change of diesel fuel.
Okay.
And then the generator itself, it sits on top of that. And then on 2 sides of the generator, there are, because obviously now the generator itself, the walk-in enclosure to get into the generator is 3 feet above the slab to get into the belly tank. There is a aluminum platform and grating and stairs to get up and access the generator itself.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
No questions.
Doug?
The only question I have is relative to the plan. And, we indicate that's a 90% progress plan instead of a, plan for permit purposes. So does that mean there are going to be changes to the plan? being
Very,
made?
very minor, very minor.
So
It does.
we ought to, before we approve a plan, it should be the 100% plan. So whatever modifications you're going to make, you got to make them before we approve it.
So I'm going to go lockstep with DEP on the administrative consent order, and I'm going to say that this is an emergency. And without going to the extent of issuing an emergency certification, I'm going to say that it seems reasonable if we flushed out the questions that we could, prior to breaking ground as a pre-construction condition, that you provide those plans to us, and that we review it as prior to authorizing the commencement of work.
Absolutely.
Keep you guys moving.
I have a couple of pictures if you want to see the belly tank and the unit.
He'll be
I've
visiting.
seen them.
It's big.
When it's up and running.
Well, I don't want it to run. I'll just look at it.
No, we want to know it runs.
No, that's true. How long, what's the time delay on it when it goes from, to generator, from regular power to generator? Just my own curiosity.
It happens fairly quickly, within 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah, so it happens fairly quickly.
So it's almost
I mean, but everything will go black. It doesn't happen simultaneously.
My
So
house-
it will go black,
my
and then
house
the
is like
generator
that,
starts
30
up
seconds and it comes back.
and comes up to load.
All right, any more
Yeah,
questions?
those pumps, you're going to have soft starts and everything else. It's not as simple as throwing a switch.
Correct.
No.
So are we continuing to the next meeting so we can close an issue at the same time? Is that what we're doing?
We have it here.
Oh, it's ready to go now?
It's ready to go.
Okay.
And we can just,
without a number.
That's true, too.
Well, can you close it and then just issue, but then hold off on issuing the order of conditions until you have the number?
Can't close it without the number. That's according to the DEP rules.
Well, in Beverly, we have.
Everybody here is correct. Let's find a way to work around it.
Well,
Let's find a way to make it
no,
work.
No, but I
Because
mean,
we don't
it's
meet for
been
another
done.
3 weeks.
It has been
I
done.
mean, it has been done.
You're absolutely right, it has been done.
Good stages, though. I mean,
And it, you know, we can place a condition in the order that if DEP has any substantive comments, that we can revisit and have them come back for a modification if their comments require such.
And that's what I'm saying, we spelled that contingency out right in the preface of the order. It gives us that opportunity, and still we wouldn't, I mean, you're not gonna walk out of here with this today, you're not gonna walk out of here come Friday. But, you guys are gonna be pushing DEP to get that number. How long ago did you apply?
Well,
Not
so
recently.
we did.
Don't ask.
Yeah, we had a hiccup. So we originally did the RDA, did the abutters, submitted the RDA, we're all ready to go. Then DP threw a wrinkle in and said, no, we think this should be an NOI. So we basically had about 24 hours to do the NOI, which the NOI itself, I wish I would have just known from the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. The NOI itself is not that much work. It was the stormwater report, because the stormwater report required to do pre and post modeling and demonstrate that, you know, there's no peak discharge, so, but that took some time. So, and anyways, we did it, we got it done, we submitted the reports, I hand-delivered them to Amy, we sent out the abutter notifications, forgot to mail DEP their copy.
And
So.
I realized today that I don't have a number yet, and it's not listed as received in the DEP portal. So-
I know.
I appreciate that.
I know.
But-
So we did call DEP. They are aware of the project. They looked at the RDA, so they are aware of it, so they know what's coming. We talked to them. Yeah, the project itself has not changed. The only.
Sometimes my colleagues all said, don't ask, and now I regret asking. Because knowing that it started out as an RDA, it became a NOI at their behest.
On their suggestion.
There very well might be comments that come out of this.
I think in speaking with Rachel Freed, her problem was that they were in riverfront and floodplain with compensatory flood storage. Direct alteration of resource
What's the
areas.
pumping capacity of that station?
130,
130
35 million gallons today.
a day. Was that work out per minute? Easily 3,000 gallons a minute?
No, you don't need to do that.
Easily. The reason what I'm saying is, you know, concern with compensatory flood storage, that's what they were dumping into the friggin' river.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, let's not lose sight of what the benefit of this is.
It's not us that's losing
Preach
sight.
it to the choir.
It's not us.
They know that we're agreeing with them.
We're the people that live here. We want to see it,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that's what that was all about, DP, because
Yeah.
it's such a high-profile
Is there a possibility to?
project now, they want to get their fingers in it.
So is there-
Mr. Tennant can put their name on it in the paper.
What happens if we're all agreeing with this, what if we, in principle, read and adopt the order of conditions, we just can't vote it to the next meeting? Does that mess you up for 2 weeks?
It's 3 weeks. Our
3
next
weeks.
meeting's in 3 weeks. That's the problem.
I still think that will work with our
'Cause if we-
timing, because we're gonna get.
That keeps everybody clean. And it's assuming DEP gets us comments within that time.
Because we still have to solicit.
So we have a draft. It can
I
be
did
like-
want to thank Amy for all her help going through the RDA and the NOI. and
Sean, it
was
would be
very
like work
helpful.
product, right?
Right, so we need,
I
It's
mean,
exclu-
if closing the hearing without a DEP file number is something that this commission just doesn't do, then maybe you should not start doing that.
Just continue it.
Just continue
No,
it.
no, we have to-
with-
I mean, you've heard from us, we were all in support of this.
Right.
This is just making it
We're not
work and
gonna-
hold our heads up high.
With the understanding that the applicant should provide a waiver of the 21-day issuance so that you vote on the next meeting, which is 21 days, it will be 21 days, on the 14th of August, with the understanding I will deliver it, or you can come get it the next day. So it's 22 days.
Why even do that? Just continue it. Just continue it. Why even do that? Just continue it, knowing
Well,
in good
I
faith.
know that, but what I'm saying, August 14th is the 21st day. that you would be voting on it, closing the hearing and voting on, no.
21 days doesn't come
Never
into play if
mind.
we
Okay, never
continue it.
mind. Forget it.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
We're good if we
Never
do it that way.
Never mind.
Move to
To
continue.
continue. Okay.
Here we go.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. August 14th.
So the million-dollar question, because it is somewhat of a formality, do you still need us to come and present and be present, or no?
Depends what DEP says.
Only if, yeah, that's
I can't
the,
imagine why we want to see you again.
only if.
Not that we don't want to see what, you know.
I get
All
it.
depends if they get a light bulb goes off in their head.
No, it's all up to DEP now.
We're all ratepayers and you cost us money.
Okay, that's
Huh?
Yeah, I'm serious.
All right, thank you.
You're gonna have a mutiny on your hands there, chief.
He hasn't kicked me yet, so ain't that bad. It's not that many.
What's next?
Enforcement order in violation. 421720, we already addressed this, didn't we?
I think we addressed it as a modification request.
So I would recommend the commission vote to lift the enforcement order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 633 Turnpike Street.
So based on the information I gave you in your packets, there was tree removal that we observed at 633 Turnpike. We issued an enforcement letter. The new owner came in, spoke with us directly, me and Ben. We visited the site. We believe that the wetland extends up towards Turnpike to some extent. So we directed him to have that area delineated, to have the whole wetland delineated, basically, because he has plans for the property. He bought it for his pest control business. So he's fully aware that no more work on the outside can go forward until he has an approved plan in hand. So with that, he has hired Norris Environmental, who will be delineating the wetlands and preparing a plan and an application.
Question, Joe?
So there's still, is there an enforcement order on this already?
It's an
There
enforcement
is, right?
letter. We
And they're
issued an
working with them
enforcement
to-
letter.
And so do we prescribed any timelines?
No.
So.
But we
good in-
can.
you know,
The commission.
Good intent is great, and.
No, and the commission can decide to issue a formal enforcement order requiring, you know, a restoration plan, or, in conversation with Mr. Riley, though, I get the sense that he's totally open to, more restoration, less mowing up to the edge of wetlands, so, we'll have a good opportunity to have a better result in
But
the end.
if it were not for his intent to do other things on his property, he wouldn't be flagging it. This would be moving forward.
no,
I just don't
I
want
get
it
it.
to languish.
No, I get it.
That I got a plan that I'm not gonna
Right.
flex my muscles on for another 3 years. That-
Oh, I
That's not
understand.
right.
Yep.
Some sort of deadline, I'm thinking.
Yep.
I'm not sure what that is.
Well,
So it's restoration. I mean, this is not the time of year to plant, that sort of
Right.
thing. So I give him a deadline to submit this to us.
the end of August?
I was gonna say first meeting in September. We're on the
Okay.
same
I
page.
was gonna say something first, but that's okay. That works. Why don't we do a September 11th meeting?
It's going to be a heavy meeting.
Well, this shouldn't take anything.
You get 12, Tim.
Huh?
We already got 2 big projects coming in on the 11th.
The one that we held off, they're not gonna go anywhere.
Okay. Okay.
So it's September 11th.
September 11th for a restoration plan for
To submit a restoration plan.
tree cutting, for the tree
Which is
cutting.
really late in the year to be getting a restoration plan.
So you wanna do it sooner?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just
The
saying.
end of
that-
August.
Yeah, but
August
we don't know what the
28th?
planting is, but is it shrub layer, or is it's shrub, right?
It was trees.
Trees.
It was just trees in
Perfect
lawn.
time of year, you
Trees
want to
in
plant them when
lawn.
they're dormant in the fall
So-
anyway. It's when you want to plant.
The trees will work out, though.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm not,
Okay. So September
I don't
11th.
plan, I wouldn't plant
Okay, so
anything late, but.
you want to vote to issue an enforcement order requiring restoration plan to be submitted in time for the September 11th meeting.
Right,
Okay.
right, at the latest.
Okay? Next one.
Is there a motion on that? I need a motion.
Yeah, it was unanimous.
All those in favor say aye. That was unanimous. Opposed, that's unanimous. Next one is 1660 Great Pond Road, Rolling Ridge.
Have a seat if you want.
Either place,
Actually,
wherever
we're
you're
getting
comfortable.
some pictures of kind of what we've done. I think Amy visited the property. I don't have.
Yeah.
I've already seen them. I've seen them. That's the old picture. Yes.
So before,
I know, I saw that before.
You saw these?
And I saw the after.
very nice.
And so we've been able to regrade the area as well as to reseed and put the straw in. We put in everything right before one of the thunderstorms, and so life is good. And we also had ground care come and move the brush from one side of the road to the other side of the road, and we're working with ground care in terms of what point, how you can see right there in that picture, that's all the stuff that needs to get moved off property, and we're hoping to get rid of, to move it within the next week. And so we're just working with ground care right now in terms of when their truck can come on site.
Joe, any questions?
Appreciate how seriously you took this and the actions you've taken. You've done a nice job showing good faith, getting us where we need to be.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Very good, huh?
No, sir.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've taken it to heart, you've done a good job, and let's continue to do a good job.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're probably going to be continuing, once this is all kind of resolved, we will be working with the Community Preservation Commission to be able to look into the trail. And we're going to hopefully be able to provide a full plan of what we need to do from the parking lot all the way through to the labyrinth, which will include the trail over the area that was in violation.
Now that you've got it stabilized, you have the time to do that.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm also going on vacation in August, so I want to make sure this is all taken care of before I disappear.
Yeah. You're gonna have a guard dog down there, making sure there's nobody violating while you're off.
Well, I think Amy's got a picture of the barrier that we have as well. I think it was one of the pictures. Right there. So I don't think anyone's going to be able to walk in that area, so.
That's what we want.
Yep.
So I guess a question for the commission is, Maureen with Norse had spec'd out some shrubs as part of the restoration. Do we want to just hold off on those shrubs because the boardwalk may conflict with them in the end? Or, I mean, we have it seeded and it's hayed and, or strawed and it's stable.
I want to revisit the timeline in my mind, but I thought we broke it into slices where stabilization,
Yeah.
first and foremost, check mark.
Yep.
And that the restoration plan be thought out at the same time
As
the boardwalk was thought out. And
You're
if the
right.
boardwalk comes in first, we can forego the restoration depending on what the boardwalk
Gotcha.
does.
Got you. Yep, thank you.
So we're saying go
No,
with
not
shrubs.
yet.
Not yet. Saying, I think we're
Wait.
still,
Amy, you did the site, you went out there, right, you had?
I had Ben do it, and I asked him to,
And you
reverse the
designated,
entirety.
because there was more than one stockpile of shrubs, correct? I've got the broken brush. Was there
Yeah,
more
but
than
they
one?
they were much smaller. A lot of them were out of the buffer,
Okay.
but this was the biggest and the most
Okay.
egregious.
So you, in your
So-
opinion, or Ben's opinion, just that one pile was to be removed, right?
I mean, you're working,
So if you take a look at the pictures, you can see the ground care, the big yellow, I don't know the name of the
The
machine.
excavator, yeah.
The excavator. And so we wanted to play it very conservative. We didn't want him to go way far down for fear of disturbing things. And so we had him bring up all the big stuff. And so there's still some little stuff that Amy had mentioned that's still there. We're going to be moving the rest of the stuff up by hand.
Okay. Because I know Amy or Ben were gonna go out there and designate which piles were to be moved. So I think Al wanted to keep some for some of the slag for,
No, the standing snags, I was talking not about this stuff.
Okay.
I'm talking about, you know if you see a standing dead tree
yeah.
that's been chopped in half, I like to leave them standing. They make good housing for certain species.
Okay.
There's all kinds of things that'll move into them, so.
Just so, I mean, I'm the lone wolf, but when you do the trail, you gotta come before us again, correct?
That's correct, yes, huh?
Thank you.
and that was the timetable we were talking
Yeah.
about. If they don't bring the trail forward, then there's a deadline for them to plant the shrubs.
They don't, see, because we're gonna lose the planting season.
Well, that was the discussion we had. It was the same window as to get us into September. Otherwise, you just have to water the daylights out of it this time of year.
Reverend Jay, what do you think your timeline is for getting?
Part of it's going to be working with the Community Preservation Commission during the summer.
Yeah.
And so that's where we'll need to see, I don't know, when's the next meeting for the Community Preservation? September, right? September. So we'll hopefully try to be able to provide something for that meeting in September. Yeah.
So we wouldn't get anything here until after that.
No, right.
So I'm just suggesting that at some point we're losing the season as we move out.
Well, they got.
It's, I mean, it snowed last year in November.
I know.
Okay, so, you know, if you think you're gonna plant anything and have any survivability.
No, but they got the grassland here, correct?
Yeah, I got that.
All right,
There should be,
so
they put some wetland mix under there.
It's stabilized somewhat.
So it's stabilized.
Yes.
I was just
It's
talking
only-
about
it's
talking
only
about the
bushes.
Yeah, the shrubs.
There's only 4 of them, I think, isn't there? Wasn't there just 4?
I don't know.
It was four species.
4 species.
4 different
Four
species,
species.
multiples of each.
Yeah, they were gonna put a bunch in, but, so, I mean, it's, if you wanna wait for the planting to come with the filing, that can be done. Just understand that it's not gonna get done probably this fall. Very unlikely.
I personally, my own, I don't think they should change the trail, but that's, that. That's the way I feel with that. I go with the commission.
So, Amy, so we're stabilized.
Yes.
So in your opinion, the planting can wait until some type of a decision is made on the filing?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it only makes sense.
Okay.
Al and I, in the past couple of meetings, have just had this back and forth on the planting. So trees and shrubs, the optimum time of year to plant those are in fact September and October, and as early as late as right up to just before November, till you get a hard frost on the ground. Now, what it means is the monitoring has to go on further to make sure they survive, but that's the optimum time of year to plant. This is not the time to be planting those things. Grasses and things and flowers and
Yeah.
whatnot, now, sure. But shrub layer and trees, you absolutely want to be doing that in the fall.
Well, if you were putting wetland species in, I would disagree with wetland species, but depends what you're putting in. I don't know what we're doing, so.
I mean, she called out 7 shrubs: high bush blueberry, common winterberry, northern arrowwood, and common spice bush.
Yeah,
7.
okay.
I mean, unless there's areas out there that won't conflict with the potential boardwalk, and I'm happy to go out there and identify those areas,
So we'll just wait.
but it probably won't be in the footprint of where they, blaze the trail, because I don't think it makes sense to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just wait.
Questions? No. Sean, any questions? No, sir. Duggan? No. Motion? We're gonna give them are we giving them a deadline?
We have to amend the enforcement law.
We have to amend it, okay?
Require them to come back.
They have to submit a filing for the boardwalk. They want to coordinate that filing with the parking lot.
Right.
So they're gonna come back
CPC.
with a filing and the restoration plan will be part of the filing.
Right.
I don't know what kind of deadline you want to give for that. I have no idea what they
Well,
say.
later than November 11th. Excuse me, September 11th. First meeting in September.
You have to put it
Yeah,
in
but-
October. You have to put it in October.
They're not even
They're not
able
gonna
to
even
meet
be in
with
CPC
CPC.
until September.
Right.
So we gotta do the 20th. Not the 25th.
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 So the second meeting in September, give it a shot and see what happens.
25th.
They can always tell us they're not ready.
Okay. Well, I'll give them 2 weeks.
It might not be enough time.
That was a motion already?
That was.
Second.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Now we have is just one decision because we're gonna
Have a good night.
forego.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Have a good.
Hopefully you won't stay too much longer.
You want to Pleasant Valley?
December?
You want to Pleasant Valley?
All right.
You've never been? Pleasant Valley? You haven't, come on, everybody goes to Pleasant Valley.
What are we doing now?
Doesn't realize she was there.
What are we doing now,
Pleasant
mister?
Valley's in Methuen.
It's an area, it's a section of Methuen
It's the Hardemania Meadows.
where I grew up, actually.
Yes, you have. I haven't.
No, she's never, there's no way she's ever been there. No way on God's green earth.
Never.
No way.
Never.
Not a
All right,
chance.
so the first decision we have is 2'2", 1756.
1756. Got it. I got it, Mr. Chairman.
And while we're doing these to the fellow commissioners, we're a little sketchy on bonds amounts. So you know, me, I like heavy bonds. Amy's not sure, she's not sure we like it. So I just said we leave that up for discussion. What?
Well, what's the scope of work? And
Well,
that should determine the bond.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I
On
mean,
point.
so, this one, this one.
Scope of work here is to demolish an existing deck and facilitate the construction of an addition at the rear of the house that'll be outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
I think we did not the bonus. Oh, we did 2,000.
Construct an in-ground pool. Work to take place within the 100-foot buffer zone on the second part of the work.
It was pretty busy plan.
Relocate the fence.
Huh?
Relocate the fence.
Relocate the fence?
Fence that's on town property. is gonna
What's
fall
the
back.
closest point?
Oh, that's the one, yeah.
What's the closest point of work? Do you know, Amy? If you know.
Well, the fence isn't the fence in?
You wanted more than 2,000?
They were gonna,
No,
The fence-
we mutually agreed on 2,000, but like we did 5 for the sewage treatment plant.
so paragraph 46, Lou, has a performance surety listed.
Yeah, I know. We weren't sure if the board was comfortable with that kind of bond,
So,
more or less.
so, no, when, in the past, we've charged, assessed a bond of $3,000 for an entire house, depending upon the impacts, the distance, if there's,
So, all right, so the pool patio is 88 feet at the closest point. The landscaping is probably 80 feet.
is there replication at all?
No,
It's already previously disturbed yard.
yes.
I think $2,000 bonds were fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. I have no problem with that.
Good.
So I also, number 49, I made a suggestion for no disturb zone markers.
It's good.
Yep.
Is that all right?
Trees, 39 you said, or 49? 39, right?
49.
40.
So I'm suggesting 5 markers along the westerly property line. We just measured out along that stretch. It will help protect the town-owned land as well that abuts it.
So one thing you'll see from us is we're big fans of permanent barriers. It's 2-foot by 2-foot freestanding stone walls. So pretty much that's what we have everybody put
Yeah.
25 feet away from wetlands. But we didn't do that on this project, did
So
we?
this was a pre-existing development, that's what it was, mid-80s?
This was mid-'80s.
Yep. Best board is made.
Mid-'80s, 84, 83, 84, 85.
So it's already surrounded by a fence,
There's a chain link fence.
part of which is encroaching, so that's what we're.
Right,
gonna
moving
pull out.
back,
So
right.
the physical barrier is the
Is there,
fence.
yep.
Yeah, I think so.
I was just saying philosophically speaking is a
Yeah.
caution.
Right.
Good cat.
You know what a philosopher I am.
I know.
We invoke you when you're not here.
Good old Socrates over here.
We use,
I hear you're no big fan of waivers. That's not the pot calling the kettle black.
I'll tell you a story later. You'll love it. Any questions, Joe?
No question.
Al?
no questions, sir.
Deb?
No question.
Sean?
Is there anything else we should know, Amy?
I'm gonna, moving forward for any kind of pool project, I'll place a standard condition about the pool filtration system being cartridge and not a backwash system.
Yeah, that's in the original order, that's anyways.
It's in there, it's in 87.
Yeah, so that'll, I'll just have that as a
Make it
boilerplate.
standard.
Make it standard. Doug?
Standard.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. I think, yeah, oh, Blue Ridge. Yeah, Blue Ridge, right?
338
1759.
Blue
Next.
Ridge.
Yeah. I'm gonna say these decisions. This is the, Ray Lawrence. I'm sure she can give it back to us in a couple of weeks.
Say something else with this.
So I think this is a great example, Amy. We're looking at the bond. I just went right to the bond. Much more congested site, pool much closer, got some slope issues to worry about. It's not a $2,000 bond. It really is, has the potential to be more vulnerable. So it's more than 2 for sure. I'm not sure it gets to 5, but
I think leave it
Blame
at that.
on
yeah, I think I'm thinking leave it there too.
No, it's just outside of the 200-foot riparian zone. It's really in a critical area. 5,000 is a good number.
You get the retaining wall by the, you get the retaining wall at the end of the driveway that's literally right there.
Literally kissing.
No, I,
But we looked at, when you look at the plan to the left, you see the Mosquito Brook is literally right there.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we take a little care here?
okay. And I told you, saying, did you say money?
Money equals compliance. It was well said by somebody once upon a time.
You said it somewhere.
There was a philosopher that said it a long time ago. I forget who the philosopher was,
Confucius.
but money equals compliance has been well proven.
You said it many times, right?
I guess
Pretty sure he
in
coined the
the,
phrase.
Who coined the phrase, Joe? You? Oh,
Al did.
in the work description, I'll include tree removal. Because I didn't put it in there.
Were you going to add
Work description on the top.
it? Oh, on the top.
Yeah.
Condition 51, I 100% agree with most of the time. But given the proximity of this resource and it's up into a pool, are we not just inviting the amphibians to drown in water, pool water? What are they migrating to? I think in this instance, we'd want to steer them away from the pool to either resource or on the side.
No, this is where Darwin comes into effect, you know. If they're drawn to the chlorinated water, just let them go in it.
So it's going to be a 6-foot-high PVC solid fence. So it's not a chain link. So I guess it makes sense if it, in this case, it's up to you guys. I get it. I get frogs in my pool too.
If we're looking at migratory paths, and we look, it's connecting vernal pools, or there's some other place they want to go to either feed a breed or whatever, then there's clear, that's exactly what we would want to do.
Right.
But the only thing we do is venturing up into up
The
towards the
pool.
house in the pool. So I think
No,
in this
that's a good
instance, we
point.
probably don't want to have that.
Okay. Does everyone agree with that? No?
We don't want them breeding the pool, that's for sure.
I'll agree if it makes us move a little faster.
Okay.
Okay, so any other questions? No? Sure.
So moved as amended.
Get out of here.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Motion to adjourn?
We have another one. We have one.
No, that's.
Oh, no, that's what we're gonna
no,
hold.
That's all we're gonna
That's
say.
right, we're holding that. I almost forgot.
Every fuzzy little thing.
And you're gonna give us the papers to sign this meeting? Hey.
Be nice.
I was nice.
Be nice.
I'm always nice.